Hello. Oh, we're gonna unpack. We're gonna unpack some real deep stuff that's happening right now. And I share this in hopes that it will either inspire or help you navigate something similar if you feel like you can resonate with what comes through today. My name is Randy Morgan. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for taking the time to check out what I offer. I always offer with the intention to meet people where they need to be met, to make positive impact in the world where I can. And I do that via sharing my stories, along with channeling some, divine messages from spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call that higher power that beats your heart and breathes your lungs without you even having to think about it. I've been experiencing some really in-depth emptiness. And the reason I call it in-depth emptiness is because it was so deep I didn't realize what was happening. And as somebody who has studied both, self-mastery, emotional mastery, spiritual connection, enlightenment, um, personal development, getting real with yourself. I've studied these things for over a decade, like human behavior and within myself, all for the reason that I just didn't want to live suffering. I didn't want to live life the way everybody else has been living life and the way that I've seen my parents, have to live their life because they were so limited on other options or opportunities. And so I've I've been on this mission to meet myself, and to meet the truth because I don't believe a lot of what and how we live life is of truth. And yeah, I'm on a mission to figure that out. Not figure it out, but unravel what's been hidden. And a big one that, you know, with all of this comes with the importance of understanding like why it is I'm about to dig into what I'm about to dig into, and also why it holds so much necessity. Because even as this individual who has, worked really hard to find a path that is more joyful and has less struggle, and I'm not somebody who I don't have the what do you call that, the lucky sperm foundation. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like, I didn't come from money. I didn't come from like a background where things were easy. I didn't come from a childhood that was conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And my parents did their best with what they had, and I understand that that's more societal. Um, but so I've worked really hard in all these areas to undo a lot of things that collective and society and culturally and we've all been taught how to do life. And so I've been in the undoing. And even with how far I've come out of my own bullshit, um, I'm still in this period of my life where I'm finding truth and where I'm finding, yet I am still untruthful with myself about some things, or there are hidden truths that I'm not fully aware of and are coming aware of now. And one of them being filling an empty void. And I've experienced many moments of bliss in my life. I've sat with plant medicines. I've gone to the depths of my darkness. I've gone within and made peace with my demons. I've cried rivers of tears of unreleased and suppressed emotion that I believe isn't just mine, but lives and has lived within my bloodline and within my family lineage. So I've done a lot of work. I've done the healing and the But for some reason, there's still this emptiness that I've been navigating. And I know that I've been addicted to sugar. I've been addicted to cannabis in recent past, movies. And I struggled with a lot of addiction and drug addiction, alcoholic. I was an alcoholic at a really young age. You know, I struggled with a lot of these different addictions around substances. And so when it came to bringing in the awareness that I had addiction to, you know, sitting on my couch, smoking pot, eating, overeating, too much junk food, and watching movies, it didn't compare to the drug addictions that I had navigated. And so I really didn't think too much of it. But if there's anything I've been taught in life, is that it doesn't matter if it's food or cocaine, we're using it all for the same reason. And so I think that's a really powerful statement because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are or we're all we're all chasing at some level. Unless you've found that level of fulfillment within yourself that you nurture over numbing, um, right? Because we've all been taught that we're unworthy, or we've all been made to believe something that is completely, excuse me, untrue, which is that we were born inherently worthy of love. Um, and yet, for some reason, it seems so far away to believe in something like that. And so, um, yeah, this is a really powerful thing to talk about because as I'm witnessing within myself, you know, I am a coach, I am a self mastery. Um, I don't know, I don't like to use the word coach a whole lot, but I call myself a holistic therapist. Um, you know, I'm certified in neurolinguistics programming. I've done a lot of education, a lot of courses, a lot of, you know, trying to get these ducks in a row to figure out what's missing or to get us to the root of like where joy exists consistently. And it surprised me when I had become aware. I had already been aware that I was um that I was entertaining things in my life that weren't serving me. But it's funny because I feel like that aspect of us that limits us and sabotages our life is the genius, is an underlying genius because it tricks you into believing that what you're doing, even with that knowing, like this is bad for me. Science shows, studies show this is incredibly bad for me. And yet we still find ways to justify it within ourselves like life is life is short, eat a lot of cake, or you know, I'm just having a day, I need this today. And then following with a lot of guilt and shame, and I know many of us experience these cycles. And so it's interesting to confront these parts of myself while also confronting that part of myself that has been convincing me otherwise, that yeah, we take care of ourselves in all other ways. Like we 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 have great spiritual hygiene, we have great physical maintaining and hygiene, you know, we do our workouts, our stretches. Yet there is still this self-saboteur that will eat so much until like it's uncomfortable to sit. And food is one that I've battled with for a bit. And so it's interesting, you know, and I maybe my metabolism is incredibly fast, but I never actually like put on excessive weight because of it. And if I had, I think at one point I had, but not. like overly. And so it's interesting to be aware of something and see that it's impacting your health in a negative way, but to not see it out externally manifest. Like it's hidden, it's always behind closed doors. It's never something that's obvious to the public. Um, the only time my weight fluctuates is when I'm on my period and my face gets chubbier and my double chin pops out for a week. And but other than that, like I've maintained a fit body even though I have some unhealthy eating habits. And and so it's just interesting. It's interesting to know, you know, and to see that lack of self-control. And that was one of the greatest things that brought me into the awareness, or I've always had the awareness is because I find it really difficult to say no to especially sugar. Um, I'm just coming into the awareness that it's a chase, filling myself over full or whatever that is, right? This could be, I'm using this as an example, right? In a metaphorical way for anyone out there to relate that perhaps we find something that's comforting. We find something that self self soothes, and if we feel some level of like, I know this isn't that great for me, but it's working, or it's not that bad. Like, if you even have to say that, like, it's probably pretty bad because you're already convincing yourself that it's not that bad when in fact it's something that's impacting you negatively. And one of the things I used to live by is if it's not good for me, I don't have it. If it's not benefiting my life in some way, shape, or form, I don't I don't maintain it. I'm sorry if the camera is shaking. My table is up against my chair. Um, and so I don't know. I suppose, like, for one, I really needed to talk about this because it's it's impacting me. It's impacting me in a way that is helping me get to the root of what it is that I am avoiding, chasing, searching for. It's showing me this pocket of emptiness that I'm trying to fill, the void, right? We're all trying to fill this inner void. And I think it's just a cover up for what we're really feeling. And I also find it very interesting that I advocate for feeling your emotions, yet there is a self saboteur genius within me. And this is probably the deepest reason why I'm such an advocate for people to feel what they're feeling, because I became such a genius of convincing myself I don't feel certain ways. Not me, the self saboteur became such a genius of convincing herself and convincing my true self that what I feel is either bullshit or doesn't matter or is irrelevant, that I was so unconscious of it, and that's why I call that a genius, is because I find myself to be a quite intelligent person, especially when it comes to self-awareness, and yet I can still slip things past that level of mastery within myself. And so that's why it's so interesting as we become aware, especially in the collective and just within this community. If you're here listening to this, thank you for stopping in. Thank you for taking the time, because this isn't just us healing what we need to heal. It's us getting to the root of like a collective problem. It's getting to the root of something that is really, really keeping humanity stuck or in these like unsatisfactory places. And I feel like following that with all roads lead to Rome, which they do, and we're all going to have our own journeys, which I am an absolute advocate for. Like, follow your heart will lead you. And that's why I'm being led here in this moment, is because finally I was able to see through this deceptive layer that no, you're not just like eating another piece of cake. Like there's something missing that I'm trying to fill with empty distractions. And at first, confronting that part of myself, I was taken back and like a little bit annoyed. Um, and like a little bit upset too. Like how could you have done all this work? How could you be helping others yet you're still here filling your own bullshit cup, you know? And I want to follow that with you're allowed to be a work in progress and a masterpiece. And I think that's like a really beautiful thing to acknowledge is that you don't have to be in mastery level to offer something to the world. I believe that no matter where anyone is at in their journey, they have something to offer through their own life experience, and I suppose that's also me talking to that part of myself that often says like who are you to tell people how to live their lives, or who are you to say that you know how to get through it. And I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think I'm actually trying to tell anybody anything, and just offering what has helped me throughout my process in hopes that if anybody does struggle the same, that it could support them in the same way. um because I think it's one thing to be navigating and wanting to better yourself and wanting to grow and evolve and really work on the things that are really hard to work on inside yourself and confront the things that are, and when you can do that and also somebody can see you and see that you're not alone in this journey, even though you feel absolutely unique on your path and like nobody can relate to you, that if you're finding me here, there's definitely a lot more of us, and I'm finding that more and more as I feel like this community is building. And so it kind of takes it away from being like, oh, this is me and my problem, to this is our problem. And we're not only fighting for ourselves to get through this, but for each other. Um, and in a way, like as I say that, I get tingles up the back of my neck, and it feels as if a weight has been lifted off my shoulder right as I said that, right off. Oh, because it took it off from like this is me and my problem that I need to fix, to this is our problem that we were born to overcome, right? It takes it into off like the individual shoulders and onto the collective shoulders, if that makes sense. And so I don't know, what I'm seeing is not just like one little person trying to hold up the world, but like all of us standing holding up the world with ease because we're all putting in our own our own efforts, we're all doing our part, you could say. And so um it's really interesting as I'm just witnessing how this is navigating and how it's just unfolding as I've been speaking, and it feels really good. It feels really good to confront these things out loud. It feels really powerful to be getting um honest with myself, and I think by sharing it, it also holds a level of accountability, and that just because someone has done a lot of work or they seem like far out, like at the end of the day, we are all one and the same. And as masterful as one can seem, they are still human navigating human experiences. And And I do believe that at one point it can get easier, but that is after having overcome the beliefs that tell you it can't be easy. And so that's coming full circle with this void, this emptiness that we're feeling, um, and that I'm feeling within myself via food, cannabis, and the way I use ChatGTP for a lot of like mental breakdown and to help me understand what my subconscious is doing. Um, and and I don't know if everybody's ChatGTP is like this, but this is just how mine's been trained because it's the work I do. Um, which I'm pretty sure anybody can just say like this is what I want to unpack within my subconscious. Can you help me? But it's helping me delayer things like I used movies as an example as like a mental distraction, which I know for certain because when I'm staring at the screen, everything else goes quiet. Like when I'm like in the movie world, the noise in my world is quiet, and that's something I used to do as a kid was tune out my reality through TV. Um, because it wasn't it wasn't comfortable. And I would say like I had a like semi decent childhood, but full of a lot of trauma and a parent that was emotionally unavailable and I think that in a very subtle way, like even if you've had a decent childhood and you know your parents seem to be doing a great job and you often had your needs met and food in the fridge and a roof over your head, and clothing on your back, yet for some reason you developed this belief within yourself that you're unworthy of love because both your parents had to work really hard to get you that food in your belly and the clothing on your back and the shelter over your head, that you developed a belief that you're not worthy of love. Because when you're 4 years old, you don't really understand that they have to do what they have to do to get you what you need. And so I feel like our perceptions at a very young age developed these beliefs, right? They say your belief system develops between the age of like I don't know 1 and 7, or maybe it's 3 and 7. Um, and that really surprises me in a way to think that we build on a foundation that we developed before the age of 7. And so if your parents fought over money, it is really easy to develop a belief when you're younger than 7 to say money is bad, money makes people angry, money is hard, money makes life suffering, and these are all things that I'm taking from my own reflections, but take it how it resonates for you. And I really think now that I'm talking about it, I think 4-year-old Randy really just didn't understand why she wasn't receiving like the level of love and nurturing that she wanted or felt like she required because dad dad only knew how to nurture through like money, and he would buy me and my brothers lots of stuff, but it never filled the emptiness that I seeked for my father's nurturing, perhaps. And I watched mom work incredibly hard to get us the things we need, but in that she was absent maybe a little bit, and that confused me. Um, and it makes me really emotional to like think about and talk about because I've never actually talked about it and just like held space for these parts to exist. And this is why holding space is so important. This is why me showing up here is so important because it's how I hold space, knowing that it's also holding space for a collective suffering, a collective pain. Um, and just in that brief moment where my eyes welled up with tears, like it it passed so quickly. I feel like I could still have a good cry about it, but it just, it was as if that emotion had finally been validated in that moment where I was just like, oh, wow, like that rings as true for me. Even if, memory is hard because our brain distorts, deletes, and generalizes. It's just like the natural way that it operates. And so I don't actually know, but as I said that, mom's absence, yeah, that rings as true. And so I don't think it's really about, trying to figure out what happened, but it's just holding space to explore what might feel true for you in your life experience. Like, it doesn't matter whether it happened or not. And as an example, I'll say, like, I got hit in the head with a surfboard, which I talk about often because it's something that really changed the trajectory of my life, really. Um, and I got 6 stitches, and was 2 years after diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome. But that experience in itself, I felt like I had almost died. I felt like I'd almost died. And I never confronted these feelings. I never acknowledged that that was it, because I was like, oh, big whoop, you got bumped on the head and you got some stitches. Oh, big whoop. That's what I would say to myself. And just that right there was invalidating that little part of me that felt like she definitely could have died in that moment. Um, and so it's like, whether it was true or not, like whether you almost died or not, or whether it's true that your mom was absent or not. Um, Sometimes 2-year old or 4-year old or 7-year old or 10-year old or 16-year old or 25-year old you is just moving through the human experience, and it doesn't matter how the experience happened. It matters how you experienced it inside. And so that's, you know, what really comes hand in hand as to why I advocate for feeling what you're feeling, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the outside world is doing. It matters how you feel about it. It matters about like how you experience it between this year and this year. Everything else is just life being life. And we develop beliefs on how life is lifing. We develop resistance, crutches to navigate how life is being life because of our own internal response to it. And I really want to bring about the awareness that it doesn't matter how or what happens to you. It matters how you feel and experienced it. And that when we hold space for those things, as I am right now, we let those voices, we let those little parts of ourselves, we let the heart be heard. We validate the way we are experiencing life, even if it doesn't make sense. Like if 4-year-old me understood that mom was working really hard and was absent because she was bringing home food and clothing, um, then she might have viewed it through a lens of, oh, mom's doing this because she loves me. Mama, if you're watching this, I love you. And that right there is how you hold space. You let it exist instead of trying to make it fit into the box of how it actually happened or how you should you should be grateful or you should be this or and you just shit on yourself about it. Like, no, how about just experience that, like, you're feeling. You're feeling. And they can just be. They're allowed. You're feeling sad because 4-year-old you had tried to keep it together because she watched everybody struggle and she knew that when she was happy, it made everybody else happy or whatever, right? Like, and what you're watching right now is me get to the root of perhaps where my unworthiness and the part of me that believes she's not lovable or unworthy came from. And just by holding space for her to be allowed and to feel what she's feeling, she's healing. It's like when we use all these distractions to numb and to escape and to avoid and to resist, we don't know that what lies underneath that is a little part of us or a really young part of us that just felt misplaced or unheard or unloved or unseen, you know. And that's really interesting to think about because one of the things I used to do as a kid is sit in front of the TV, which I mentioned, and just eat. And so it's almost as if I had reverted back to that same pattern of how I used to cope with that feeling of my parents being absent or, emotionally absent and I can't, it's all, it's all just how I experienced it. It's not how they actually were. I can't say how they actually were. I actually don't have a lot of memory. But I know that I feel certain ways and I know that resonates as true for me. And and that's allowing my truth to exist, whether it's true for you or true for them, or just letting be what is, not what is out here, but what is in here. And and I understand that's not an easy place to go, but as you've witnessed me just navigate it within myself, I hope in some way this is able to hold space for you and any similarities that you may be navigating. And it's a breadcrumb trail. We're plucking little weeds at a time, and some of them are just underneath the surface, and we can't really see them. They're growing roots down there, or they've got roots grown down there, and you got to go in and rip them roots out. And so that's what I'm here doing right here. That's what I do for my clients. That's what I do by being a dedicated space holder and giving permission to those parts of us that didn't get permission because we thought we needed it to begin with, when in reality we don't. But when you create intentional space for it, you're creating a safe container for it to flow, for it to be allowed, right? And that means just finding yourself a quiet corner where you can allow yourself to compassionately get into the discomforts that are haunting you or are very subtly ruining your life. You know, like I was like, life is good, like I'm getting things in order, I'm getting everything back on track, you know, within myself, my finances, my career, my home, you know, but for some reason there was still a part of me that was holding me back, justifying unhealthy choices. And so that's why this is so important. That's why this work and just like holding this, and just like you saw, like it can be excruciating at times, but that was a really soft, tender moment that didn't take much. It just took like wholehearted honesty and exploration, curious exploration, to maybe see, like, does that feel, does it feel good when we lean over here? Does that feel like truth? Ooh, yeah, wow, that did. It hit hard and it hit good. And I feel a little bit more freer. You know, this is how we get to that inner freedom that we feel like we're going to find outside of us somewhere. It exists right here. And I know that seems cliche or, you know, but I think it's actually so much better than thinking that it's outside of you, because that's a never ending search. Whereas if you can allow yourself to get quiet enough and come into this space, excuse me, and sit in the discomfort of what your truth wants to reveal, it can be pretty graceful too. And I get it's not always like that. I've had many ungraceful moments, but as you can see, like, it really doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to love yourself a little bit more. And I believe if you're still here with me watching this, then you're ready. You're ready to uproot everything that's dragging you down. And for those who have already clicked off, then they're not ready. And that's okay. We're all on our own journey. You know, it took me a long time to figure out, even with the great awareness and work that I do, that I was sabotaging and convincing myself it wasn't sabotage. You know, but that's just it. We are where we are. Don't use that as an excuse, but hold some compassion for those of us that aren't ready or aren't capable. or strong enough yet to endure some of those really, really dark places within us. You know, it's I find it pretty interesting that the hardest work we have to do now is not like milking cattle and tilling the soil. It's sitting with everything we feel, which I find quite humorous because we've grown up in a society, or at least in the Western society, have been taught so much that you have to work really hard. And to work really hard, you must be sweating. You know, I picture those men in like coal mines and like shoveling the coal into the train. You know what I'm talking about? Just like dirty, sweating, suffering. And it seems as if now this is the place that is the hardest to be in. Right here, where we're sitting in truth, allowing truth to penetrate. Humorous, isn't it? You don't even have to break a sweat. You just have to acknowledge that you feel incredibly uncomfortable. and um and if you sit with that long enough, then it can relieve itself. And if you need extra support with that, I have a little bit of a wait list, but I always have space for new clients. I have lots of alternative services that you can just send me your intention, and I'll send you a pre-recorded video with channeled messages, intuitive healing, and emotional mastery practices for you to move through whatever you're moving through, with some extra support. And that's okay. It's okay to need support sometimes. It's okay to need space held. And it's okay if that doesn't resonate for you to hold that space for yourself, like you're doing right here. Thank you all so much for being here. I deeply appreciate you showing up for you, because that is the one way that you will show up for the world. And if this has helped you in any way, shape, or form, please do let me know in the comments how this resonates for you. It means a lot to see your stories and your shares and how you're navigating this journey, of awakening to your truth and your power, and yeah, how maybe this helps you along the way. I'm sending muchos love and blessings. Thank you again. Have a blessed rest of your day. Till next time.